Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I would like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is the fifth in a five-part series designed for members, where we talk about all the different aspects of BNI, starting with filling out your profile, then moving on to passing slips, and then the social media components. Yesterday, we went over some of the tools and reports that are available to members in the system. And today, we're going to wrap up the series with how to invite and register visitors to BNI Connect. And this is really has been a big benefit to a lot of people around the world. What we're finding is that because of the much more professional way in which we invite visitors by sending them an email invitation and then pre-registering for them in the meeting, we end up having more visitors that actually show up when they say they're going to show up, as opposed to a very casual, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'll be there on Thursday, or I'll be there on Tuesday. And then all of a sudden Tuesday morning comes around and the alarm goes off at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning and they don't end up showing up. So we're going to show you how to utilize BNI Connect to do those things, to invite and register visitors, and then also to do a little bit of follow-up with visitors afterwards. Now, before we get too far into it, I just would like to do a couple of housekeeping things. The first of which is that this is a live webinar, as you guys are all aware, given the couple of technical difficulties we just had. That means that if you have any questions during this webinar, please do feel free to ask those questions. All you need to do is to type your question in to the questions control panel that's here in the webinar software. I will see that pop up on my screen and I'll be able to answer those questions as we're going through the material today. If it's something that's completely and totally unrelated, feel free to ask the question anyway. I would be happy to spend some time after the main portion of this to answer whatever questions you might have about BNI Connect. We are recording this webinar. It will be made available in a couple of different places. The first place is going to be up on the support site. Just click on this question mark here in BNI Connect. That will take you over to the support site. And on the support site, you'll see our listing of webinars. And if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see all of the documented stuff that happens here in BNI Connect. And part of that is the recorded member webinars for June 2015. Of course, you can review past months as well. Today's webinar will be listed here as well as soon as we're able to do so. All right, so let's talk about visitors in BNI Connect. And here's a quick overview of the visitor process as far as BNI Connect is concerned. And by the way, if anybody would like a copy of this, this is a 53-page manual just having to do with visitors in BNI Connect. If you'd like a copy of it, please just send an email to support@bniconnect.com. Again, support@bniconnect.com. And I will be happy to send a copy of this out. But as far as BNI Connect is concerned, what we do is there's three different phases. There's the inviting portion, and for that we do have a visitor invitation email here in BNI Connect. The second part of that is pre-registering them. So typically we've always just put visitors in after they actually showed up. But what we're able to do now is to capture their information beforehand. Either the visitor can register themselves to your meeting, or you can register the visitors. This sends them an email letting them know that they're confirmed to visit. It also sends them a reminder 2 days before. It also notifies your leadership that a visitor is coming to the meeting. Now, the final step of this is that we do the follow-up. And after a visitor comes to your meeting, we want to make sure that if they pre-registered, that we then mark their record as having attended and the right person gets the credit in the PALMS report. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we're following up with them, and an email is sent to them thanking them for coming to the meeting. And then in addition to that, we can do some manual follow-ups as well. So let's take a look at all the different steps of this process. We do have a question already from Roman. Roman says, how do you upload guests, visitors in the BNI Connect system after your meeting? So that is one of the things that we'll cover today. So just stay tuned, Roman. We'll get to that. All right, so first step, inviting visitors. Let's take a look at that. So let me get over to BNI Connect here. So here's the BNI Connect screen, and this is where you first log into BNI Connect. You'll see your home screen here. In order to do some of the other functions on the home screen is really all your passing, your thank you for closed business and your referrals and things like that. To get to some of the other functions, we need to go beyond the home screen. Now, a lot of people have said, and I know that you guys, a lot of you are just coming over from web, which had a different interface, different menus, different options, different places to find things. But people need to know where to find things in BNI Connect. So the place to go to do stuff is going to be the operations menu. Whenever you want to do input or create something, that's going to be under operations. Network is always going to be all the social media stuff. Operations is where you do stuff, and reports is read only. So we want to send out a visitor invitation. So the place that we're going to go to is the operations menu. So I'm going to go to operations. And if you're a director consultant, this is a chapter level operation. So we go to operations chapter. Now this is an email invitation. So we're going to go down to the create email function. And you'll notice there's 3 things in here. Email my chapter will give you a distribution list for all of the people in your chapter if you'd like to email your chapter something. The second thing is the email visitor invitation. And this is what we're going to want to do. Now, what the email visitor invitation does is it takes a lot of the guesswork about what to say to a visitor in order to invite them to a meeting, because a lot of us struggle with that. I'm a member myself. I've been a member of BNI since 2002, so 13 years now, and I still struggle with people saying, well, they ask me, well, what is BNI? And you have a hard time coming up with the right words to tell them. One of the great things about the invitation is that it really does it in a very succinct manner, and one that's also brand compliant. So to test this, what we're going to do is I'm just going to put in a fake visitor name here. So I'm going to put in John Smith and his company name, which is Smith Co., and the email address. If you'd like to try this out, just put in your own email address. So I'm going to put in my own email address here. And then a personal message. The personal message is going to be the first paragraph of this email that gets sent out. So you do want to make it, well, I guess personal, so it doesn't sound as much like a canned message. You want them to know that you wrote at least that paragraph specifically for them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, it was great meeting you at the networking event. I would love to introduce you to my referral team. Now I'm going to click send. It's going to take this information. It's going to wrap it up in a nice, neat package, put it into an email, and send it off to the email address that you have listed there. Keep in mind that we're not tracking this information in any way. It is really just a simple invitation email. But the nice thing about it is that it does have a nice, I did receive it already, so it does go out immediately. I did have a nice branded image here. If anybody is familiar with the postcard series that was popular for a long time in BNI, that is what that is. It then customizes it. It puts in John's first name here. It puts in my personal message. It was great meeting you at the networking event. And then it lets him know that he's invited to the BNI Burr chapter. This is my test chapter up in Antarctica. We meet at the Cool Breeze Cafe. It's located at 11 Snowball Court in the banquet room in the Outer Limits on Wednesdays at 5:30. So all of this information that normally I would have to look up what my chapter address is, it gets input automatically by sending out this email invitation. It then briefly explains what BNI is. BNI is a business and professional networking organization. It lets them know that the BNI Burr chapter is looking for a person in their profession and to please RSVP with you. Now, if they hit reply, I know that the sending address says it's coming from BNI Connect, but if they hit reply, it will go back to whatever address is on your profile in BNI Connect. I happen to have my support address as part of my profile, so that's where it's going to reply to. So let's see, Lori says, I'm not seeing on my drop-down menu the email visitor invitation tab. So what you need to do is make sure you're going to operations. So go to operations and then the chapter level operations. And once you're here, it should be the link towards the bottom that says create email and then email visitor invitation. So if that's not available, one of the things about BNI Connect is that it is highly customizable to the regions. So whatever your executive director decides are the tools that they'd like you to use in your area, those are the ones that are allowed. So if you're not seeing the email of visitor invitation, that means that they may have turned it off in your particular area. So do please talk with your executive director and either ask them to turn it on, or they can explain why they feel they might have an alternate tool to use in your area. Does that help, Lori? Okay, yep, definitely contact your executive director. You also bring up a good point. Lori, I'm assuming you're in probably Australia or Canada. There are minor differences in language as well. Here in the United States, we've translated that to mean create email. One of the reasons because is in Australia, this is listed as mass email, like a mass communications. Especially up here in the northeastern United States, mass is an abbreviation for Massachusetts. So that's why we've changed this from mass email to create email. So hopefully that helps. All right, so that is the email portion. How to send out an email using BNI Connect. Let's take a look at the next part of that. And again, just to repeat, we are not tracking email addresses. We're not tracking how many of them are being sent out or who's sending them out or anything like that. It's just a means to give you a convenient way to send out a branded email template. All right, so let's take a look at the next part of this process. So the next part of this process, this is still before the chapter meeting. So you've sent out your invitation. That person comes back and says, you know what? That sounds great. I do want to come to your chapter meeting. Sign me up. So what you want to do is you want to pre-register them for the chapter meeting. And again, it's pretty straightforward to do. We're going to go back to BNI Connect now. And the place that you want to be is, again, under the operations menu. Again, operations is input. So I want to input a visitor that's going to be coming to a meeting. So under manage visitors, my third option says register a prospective visitor before a meeting. And again, this is the US English translation, but the term that you're specifically looking for is prospective visitor, because these are visitors that are going to be coming to a future meeting, not a visitor that has already attended a meeting. Registering a visitor is pretty easy. All we do is click on that link and fill out the form. So we just need to select a profession and a specialty. So this person, let's say they're in real estate and they are in relocation services. You know you're in the right place because it will only allow you to choose future dates. So it won't let me put anybody in for the past because that's no longer a prospective visitor if they've already been to a meeting. So we'll let you choose a future date, put in the person's name. So Joe Smith from Smith Co. And again, fill out as much of the details as you have. The nice thing is you are creating their permanent record in the system. So even if this person ends up becoming a member at some point in time, we're inputting the information that will just follow through all the way through until they become a member. So do be careful when you're putting the information in, especially for things like typos. Now, phone number is mandatory. You do have to enter a phone number in here. Roman says, why would you need to enter their address in? And you don't necessarily have to enter their physical address in. Again, it's just helpful for creating the record. I know that there's a lot of places, I don't know if you guys are where you're located, Roman, but a lot of people here in the United States use a company called Send Out Cards in order to do follow-ups and send out physical postcards to people and whatnot. So a lot of people will use their visitor database to import that and to send out cards in order to do some follow-up with the visitors, in an offline fashion. So that would be one reason for putting in the physical address here. So phone number is mandatory. Email address is also mandatory. One of the great things about this, I'm going to put my own email address in here, is that what it's going to do is start an email process. So by submitting this, it's going to register Joe Smith here to visit the BNI Burr chapter. It's going to send him an email saying, congratulations, you are confirmed to visit. Again, you are confirmed to visit. This right here is one of the things that's changing the culture of visitors in BNI. It's no longer just if you show up, great. Now it's setting a sense of expectation with the visitor that they need to show up. Somebody is going to miss them if they don't come to the meeting. They will get a very similar email 2 days before the meeting, letting them know that, just a reminder, you were confirmed to visit. Please show up at this date and this time, and here's the address again in case you need it. In addition to that, the whole leadership team, the president, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, all the visitor hosts, and the director consultant got a similar email saying, by the way, this is great news. You have a visitor that is confirmed to visit this week. There's some great things that you can do with that information. You can actually do a pre-follow-up with that visitor. You can call them up and say, hey, I noticed that you just registered to visit our meeting. That's awesome. We look forward to seeing you. By the way, I noticed that you're a plumber. We've been looking for a plumber for a long time. We have an electrician. We have a contractor. They've been looking for a plumber. We can't wait to introduce you. So all of this networking that you can do before the meeting even happens, the more touches you have with a visitor, the more welcome they'll feel when they walk in that door. Cindy asks, what happens if you invite the day before? Do they get the 2-day before email as well? No, if you register them within that 2-day window, they will not get a reminder. They will only get the registration message. All right, so hopefully that answers your question, Cindy. All right, so the other great thing about this is that visitors can also pre-register themselves. So this is how you would register somebody inside BNI Connect, but let's take a look at the regional website. So if your region has set up their regional website already, and some of them have not, so just be mindful of that. But here we have, if I click in the upper right-hand corner, the regional website, this is the public-facing website. So this is where anybody can go and see my regional information here in Rhode Island where I'm a member. But let's say that there's somebody out there and they decide they're checking out BNI and they want to go visit a chapter. They can even click on the map. They can see this BNI Pine Hills Partners chapter. They can look at the chapter details for it, see all the members, say, wow, this is a pretty nice looking chapter. I think I'm going to visit this chapter. They could click on visit this chapter. And this form is almost identical to the form that you fill out as a member on the inside of BNI Connect. The only difference is that there is a CAPTCHA code to make sure that they're not robots here trying to log in a bunch of fake members. And they're the ones that fill out the invited by field as opposed to automatically choosing the person that's doing the data entry. This is also available, just so you know, on the chapter website. So every chapter in BNI does have their own website through BNI Connect. And here they can click on the Visit Chapter link and it brings them to the same page here. Just so you know, just so you can see what a default page looks like in case you haven't seen one before. This is, for example, my chapter page. This is a default chapter page with the exception that we did put a link to our Facebook page in there. But you can see it shows the chapter speakers, how much money we've passed, and again, a link to visit this chapter. All right, and that's the registration process. So again, pre-registering for the meeting, that right there will greatly improve the number of visitors that actually show up to the meeting. So the final part of this process is now we've pre-registered our visitors, we've invited them, we've pre-registered. Now we need to do the follow-up of people that have actually showed up to the meeting. And I believe this is, Roman, where we're going to start to answer some of your questions here. How do you upload the visitors after the weekly meeting? So the place to do this, I'm going to go back to BNI Connect, again, is going to be under the operations menu. Again, data input, data management, we're going to operations. Operations, and again, manage visitors. Now, the process I recommend is to first check to see if the visitor pre-registered. And for that, we're going to go to manage registered visitors. From here, we can do a search for various people or just leave it wide open and just search all of our registered visitors. You can see that I've registered a couple of times to visit this. Joe Smith and John Smith, they're frequent flyers registering for our chapter here. Of course, you can sort this by any of the fields for visit date or things like that. So let's see, myself here, I was registered to go and visit on the 27th, and I did go to the meeting. I went to the Burr chapter in Antarctica. So if I'm the visitor host, what I would do is first check this list to see who had visited, and then I can go and edit this particular record. When I go in to edit this record, one of the very first options I have here is visitor attended. So that means that I can then confirm that this visitor has attended this meeting. Once I check that off, it will then give me the option, should the person that invited them to the chapter, should they get credit for it in the PALMS report? So normally that is going to be a yes, you want to give them credit. There are reasons where you may not want to give them credit. There are times when maybe it's that person's second or third or fourth visit. You want to keep track of them showing up, but you don't necessarily want to give the person credit 2 or 3 or 4 times because that will lower your conversion ratio. Or maybe the person's already a BNI member. So that would be another reason not to want to give credit in the PALMS report. You go in and you verify the profession, the specialty. You can go in and confirm who invited them or choose a new person that invited them. You can update any of the information here. I'm going to fix the name, enter any additional information you've gathered. And finally, you'll have the choice whether or not to send them a follow-up email. Now, in this case, I'm pretty behind on this data entry, so I visited this chapter on the 27th, or about 2.5 weeks ago, and I'm just catching up now. I may want to suppress this follow-up email so that I'm not sending a "thanks for visiting the chapter today" email 2 weeks later. I can verify the email address and click submit. Now, again, once I click submit, a "thank you for visiting" email immediately goes out. So it should come to my email address in just a second, saying that the Burr chapter says "thank you for visiting." And here's that email now. And you'll notice that I am no longer listed here in the registered visitors list. I've been moved from registered visitor to confirmed already visited visitor. Now, if the person is not appearing in this list, what you can do is click on the Add Visitor button, and that will just add a visitor in from scratch. And it's really the same form, except you do still have the option to add them to Palms, as well as the option to send a visitor follow-up email. Lori says, how can you check to make sure that they've been added? So once you've started tracking your visitors here, if I go back to the operations menu and under manage visitors, visitors that have been added in the past will appear, and essentially it's a different database. You have your registration database, and then you have your visitors database. So under the manage visitors, this will be all of the people that have ever attended a meeting. Now for this one, I do have to choose a date range. And here I'll see the 3 visits that I've had. And one of my options is I can go in and edit one of these records. And right at the top, it will tell me, was this added to the Palms? And it will give me a yes or a no. A yes means that it was presented to the vice president. The vice president said, yep, we accept this, and it was entered into the Palms report. Now you'll notice the one that I just did a minute ago, this one right here. This one says no. So this was presented to the vice president, but the vice president has not yet done the weekly Palms report, and therefore the acceptance hasn't been done yet. Does that answer your question, Lori? As well as Roman, does that answer your questions? Roman says, can you please explain who has access to managing visitor operations? That is, once again, going to depend largely on your particular region as to what they have decided people have access to in the system. By default, most members, so when a member logs in, they will see the ability to add a registered visitor, and that's usually the only option that they're going to see. In order to do the visitor management piece of it, they would have to be a visitor host or somebody on the leadership team. But again, that's the default set of permissions. It may be different in your particular area. Does that help, Roman? All right, let's see. Lori says, I don't have many of the features, or I will have to find them or ask the head office. We don't have any visitor information since mid-May, and I've added them, but they don't show up. So if you're adding them and they're not showing up, let's figure out why. I will be happy to do some one-on-one troubleshooting with you after. But let's look at a couple of other places that this information shows up. And for that, again, we're not doing data entry, we're just looking for information. Let's go and take a look at some of the reports that are available in the system. So I'm going to go to reports and then to chapter level reports. And here in the reports, we have a couple of different reports. We do have to scroll down. There's quite a few reports here. So we scroll down a little bit. A couple of things. We have the chapter visitor report. The chapter visitor report will show you everybody that has been registered that has shown up to a meeting. So people that have actually come to your meeting. This is your list of chapter visitors. So I can go back, as far in time as I want to. And here we have my list of visitors here, people that have come to our chapter, the Burr chapter in Antarctica, between November and June. You can see a lot of John Smiths and a lot of Jeremy Walshes here. I have their email address, I have their visit date, and things like that. So that would be one place to look, Lori, is this chapter visitor report to make sure that they have been entered into the system properly. Now, again, this is the people that have visited. The people that have just registered to visit, they are going to be under the visitor registration report. For this, we would look through, and we don't have anybody for my chapter registered in the next couple of weeks, well, in the next week, but if I go ahead and bump this date out a little bit, here's the Joe Smith one that I entered to visit on the 24th. So again, this is my prospective visitor registration, and the other one was the visitors that have actually shown up. Roman says, why would you need to add a visitor to the POMS report? Wouldn't you just add who they were invited by so that the person gets credit? That's actually what it's doing automatically. So just like the online slips automatically add, who gave a referral to who and who received a referral and who had a one-to-one with who. Similarly, with visitors, when you mark a visitor, when you enter a visitor into BNI Connect, it will go and put that one into the visitor column for the person that invited them. So rather than having to, turn in a referral slip or something like that, this is what notifies the vice president that somebody should be getting credit for it. Does that answer your question, Roman? All right, so just if we have any vice presidents on the line, after I entered that visitor, here's what happens. So if I go back to the operations menu here, and I go to meeting management and enter POMS, this is where a vice president would go to enter a POMS report on a weekly basis. The first thing that I'm presented with before I can even choose a date to enter my POMS report is it says that these 3 visitors have been entered by the visitor host. Their visit dates were February 5th, May 27th, and May 27th. Do I want to add the credit to the POMS report? So the vice president still has final say as to yay or nay this person, in this case Jacob, Jamie Jones, and BNI Connect support. Those people in the chapter would get credit for these visitors. Do I want to give them credit? Yes or no? And this would update the POMS reports accordingly. And now we'll see that there's no visitors left that I have to make decisions on, and I can proceed to entering the POMS report. And there's already one for that day, but does that help to explain it a little bit better there, Roman? And Lori says, I don't have those options either, so no wonder I can't figure it out. So yes, Lori, you're definitely going to have to talk with your regional office. It either means that you don't have the right roles. So for example, if you're acting as a visitor host, but you don't have the visitor host role in BNI Connect, you won't have those permissions. Or they've just locked down certain things. All right, and that, my friends, is the visitor process. So we have the email invitation, we have the pre-registration, and then we have the follow-up as well. So what I'd like to do is we went a little bit over today because we had a little bit of the technical challenges in the beginning. But what I'd like to do is to open this up for any and all questions that you might have. Now, I understand we're already past the bottom of the hour, so if people do need to leave to get to other appointments, I completely and totally understand. But that being said, I am happy to hang out and answer all of your questions. This is what I do all day, every day. I answer BNI Connect questions, so I'm happy to do that live. Let's see what we have here. Roman says, I'm a visitor host, so I can only view the chapter POMS summary. So one way to check what roles you have, just so you guys are aware of this, especially new people, is to go and do a search for yourself using the magnifying glass, or click this profile button at the bottom. But Roman, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a search for you. And if I pull up your profile here, hey, great job getting your profile updated. Well done. So what I'll see here is that these are your roles that you have in the system. I can see you're from the United States, from Northern Virginia, you're in the Virginia Business Alliance, and that you are in this chapter as a visitor host, as well as a member. So that means that according to default permissions, you should have a lot of those visitor entry functions and the visitor management functions. And again, the place that you're going to enter those is under operations. And again, if you don't, that's something to definitely discuss with either Natalie or with Sam, one of the directors or executive directors in your region. Merv says, how do you find who to contact to acquire permissions? There's two ways you can do that. If your regional website is set up, so click on regional website in the upper right-hand corner, and then click on the contact page. If your regional website is active, this will give you the contact information for all of the people in your region. If your regional website is not active, if this brings you to your old BNI webpage or just brings you nowhere, what you want to do is the second best way to do that is to go to reports. And if you go to the chapter roster report, so if I go to reports, and then the second report down here says chapter roster report, this will actually list all of your people in various positions. And unfortunately, we lost our director consultants up in Antarctica, but this would list your director consultant and the phone number in order to get in touch with them. So does that answer your question, Merv? Janice says, when will this recorded webinar be added to the BNI Connect YouTube channel so I can advise my chapter? I'm hoping to get it up to the YouTube channel within the next 24 to 48 hours. That being said, we do have, if you need to get it out to them right away, if you go to the support site, again, click that question mark in the upper right-hand corner. Under the chapter training and documentation, under recorded webinars, just go 1 month back to May 2015. And there is a copy of the visitor presentation, BNI Connect from invitation to follow-up from May 20th. And it's almost the same content, obviously different people, different questions, but it's the same process. But I should have that up there in the next day or so. Let's see, Anton says, it looks like I'm not set up as a speaker. So that is definitely something to talk with your secretary treasurer about. Roman says, so only members can invite a visitor but not pre-register them. Just so you know, you can do a pre-register them. From anybody can do it from the regional website, and you can't turn that off. So if I go to bninova.com, for example, now if I want to just say find a chapter, and which chapter were you in again there, Roman? But I guess it doesn't really matter. The Northern Virginia Business Alliance. Here it is, N109. All right, so right from here, I can just click on visit this chapter, and that link will always be there. So even if you don't have the option within BNI Connect, you can do that from your BNI Nova website, or for everybody else on the call, it would be from your regional website and your chapter page. It is also available on your chapter. So this is your chapter website. It looks like you guys done about $1.5 million last year with 43 members. Excellent job, Roman. But you can click on the visit this chapter right from there. You can even send this link out to your chapter if you'd like to encourage them to register their visitors ahead of time. So does that help, Roman? All right, let's see. Roman also asks, can you change the location of your meeting when you pre-register a guest? No, you cannot. That is automatically pulled from your chapter details. So in order to change the location, you would need to update your regional office has to update the location of your chapter in BNI Connect, and then it'll start auto-filling it out. That being said, if you need to customize the invitation in any way, here's what I would do. Send yourself an invitation, just like this. Then just forward it. So if I wanted to use this and get it to somebody else, what I would do is just edit this directly from here, take out the forward, change this to Sam, whatever you want to do, and then you could just use this to update your address information and things like that. Make sure you do change the font back to black from blue, though, if you're forwarding it. Lori says, thanks, this is good. I now know that there are things missing on the back end, but you have to run now. Thank you so much for being here, and good luck, Lori. Anton asks, if I wanted to visit a neighboring chapter where my vocation is not filled, can I invite myself, or is it dependent on the config of the region? Also, with regards to the speakers roster, is it a historical record? So yes, you can use this tool. Again, if you click this regional website up here, that's a great way to look for other chapters in your region. So for example, I can go by the map and I can just see from a location standpoint, or I can go to find a chapter. The other thing I can do is, if your chapter supports it, if your region supports it, there's also a find an opening tool where you can search for openings in particular chapters to go and visit. Now, when you do locate a chapter that you would like to visit, let's say I want to visit this BNI coin chapter, I do highly recommend, aside from registering yourself, also talk to either the chapter director consultant and or the president of the chapter. Let them know that you'd like to come by for a visit. Ask if there's any meal fees. A lot of times, for example, we don't collect room fees for our visitors. However, we still have to pay for visitors, but we do that just out of politeness to our visitors. As another BNI member, you're not really an eligible visitor to those chapters. So it's always a good idea to offer to pay for your breakfast or lunch or whatever, if there's a meal or any other fees that might be associated with visiting that chapter. Does that answer that part of the question? All right, now the second part of your question is the speaker report, is that historical? It is historical in that you can look up past speakers, but the problem with it is that you cannot, if there is something missing or something changed historically, you can't go back and alter it. It was designed as a speaker reminder tool, and because of that, it only allows future people to be entered because it puts those people into a queue to trigger a speaker reminder email. So that's the reason why you can't do anything historically, just you can only enter things into the future. All right. All right, Roman, I see another question here. Did I already answer this one? I'm not sure. Online for members, they can only invite and pre-register, or just invite. Roman, unfortunately, I don't know what the permissions are specifically in your region, but by default, again, default permissions, the members should be able to invite and pre-register by default, unless they've specifically turned those functions off in your particular region. And anything permissions related, definitely give a call to your regional office Yep, definitely talk to Sam or Natalie about that, and they should be able to assist. All right. Do we have any additional questions at all? I would be absolutely thrilled to answer any other questions, whether it's about visitors or anything else in BNI Connect. While you're thinking of any final questions, just a couple of additional reminders and housekeeping things. Be sure to check out our remaining webinars for the month. If you go back to that support site, again, click the question mark. We do have a couple of webinars still coming up this month. We have one if you'd like to update your chapter web pages, become your webmaster. We have the chapter web pages one coming up this Thursday in a couple of days at this same time. Next week, we have a couple on Thursday and Friday next week, specifically for leadership teams. We're going to go through the chapter goals program, and we're also going to go through the leadership team tools and reports. All of those things that you do as a leadership team, entering POMS reports and scheduling speakers and mentors and all of that type of thing. So a good referral for me is to please let your chapters know about these webinars, and then in July, we will do this whole series over again. So if you have new members that are coming into your chapter or members that couldn't make it now, have them come to one of the live webinars in July. That would be a great referral for me. And I'll have that schedule posted usually the last week or so of this month. Finally, I would absolutely love it if you gave us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. Really trying to get to 10,000 likes. So if you could, pretty please go and give us a like up there on Facebook. And finally, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. You will see this video up there shortly. And if you'd like to be notified of when new videos are uploaded, please be sure to subscribe. All right, so we have a couple of more questions before I sign off here to answer. Anton says, can you broadcast the webinar link? Absolutely. I mean, you can take that link and send it via email if you'd like to. So you could just, for example, copy this and paste it into an email if you wanted to, and email your chapter, and anybody would be able to register for that particular webinar. And the link to the Facebook, Anton, or were you looking for one of the other things? Roman says, how do you get to the chapter visitor registration? Anton, on the large list of webinars. To get to this large list of webinars, click on this question mark here in BNI Connect. So right up here in the upper right-hand corner when you're logged in, click on this question mark, and that will take you to this page, and it's right here on the home page. So this is it's support.bniconnect.com, support.bniconnect.com. All right, and Roman, are you looking for the visitor registration for other chapters or your own chapter? So under Operations, Chapter, under Manage Visitors, there is an option, Register a Prospective Visitor. And every member should have access to that. And really, this is the same exact process. It's the same exact form that you're filling out on the public website. The difference is that it assumes that you are the person inviting the visitor, and because you're logged into BNI Connect, you don't have to enter a CAPTCHA code. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'd like to once again thank all of you for being here, and a special thanks to especially Anton and his son Lachlan, who are here at 5 o'clock in the morning in Australia. I know for some of us in Canada and Northern Virginia, it's somewhere between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I do appreciate some of the people on this call that have gotten up at excruciatingly early times just to be here. So I do look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and happy connecting.